session today. I'm going to try really hard to kind of explain what Reset does so you know who we are and how the standard came to pass, but I don't want to sort of go down into too much repetition. And also for those of you who have sat through my 4.5 hours of webinars that are posted on our website, you already know a lot of this. So what I'm going to talk about today are a couple of, high-end sort of overview and statistics about the standard and why I think Passive House and this sort of technical group that you guys have is such an amazing fit. So as stated, we are the world's first continuous monitoring, performance-driven indoor air quality certification program. And to just kind of give you a quick timeline and some statistics, we are a very young standard. There's no doubt about it that our team of experts have been in the trenches about air quality since about 2012. But really by 2017, we started to have these pilot projects. And we only had 43 of them at the time, and it was about 87,000 square meters of total project space. So we call those pilot projects because it was when we were floundering with trying to figure out how we were going to standardize this. The technology on the scene was new and quirky and clunky, and nobody knew what we were going to do. So we really put our heads together and came up with the official standard in 2018. So that is the standard that you find on the website now, version 2.0, and we are constantly in peer review groups to improve the standard. So you can always look for amendments and changes, but we will alert you as to when that's going to happen. So fast forward to 2020, we still only have a small number of projects. We're not shattering any records. However, we do have almost 1.1 million square meters of project space. So what's been interesting for us to actually see is that it's not the small projects that we're getting, it's the big ones. So large buildings, multi-floors, multi-story towers with huge portfolios of building stock are actually coming to the Reset standard. And from what we can gather, it's for two reasons. One, it's for the first time the building owner and operator has a chance to actually have something that they're proud about and actually certify for a project that is largely based on its core and shell and its HVAC system. That's rather new for the industry. And the second is that it's performance-based. So it's ongoing, which is very different than putting a plaque on your wall and saying, great, we're amazing, and then you leave for the day. So since January, we've got 10 projects in the throes of a pandemic. We're still very pleased to say that we have 10 newly certified Reset projects, and we have 11 waiting in the hopper to be audited. We also, as of February, have 37 new accredited APs. So we've shifted all of our trainings, which have always been person-to-person, to an online format. So we certainly haven't lost any traction. We have projects in 12 different countries, 51 cities, 8 accredited data providers, more monitors than we've ever seen, meaning 4 Induct, which were monitors that were never even on the market to begin with, and proud to say that we've got over 500 accredited professionals around the globe. So this line is, everybody loves this line, you can't measure, you can't manage what you can't measure, but I want to add to that, it's really important that you measure in the same way. So what the standard was really trying to focus on was lassoing in this wild, wild west of people who decided that they were going to become experts in air quality, and they were throwing around, $20 monitors and thinking that that's going to give them good data. So very apropos to what was shown in the video before, snapshots of basically tinker toys that you put on a wall is not the way you want to regulate a building. So we really want to be clear that our standard is asking you, what are you monitoring with? Is it accredited? Has somebody looked at its performance? Can somebody attest to its performance? The other is, who is actually controlling and aggregating your data? Doing it manually sucks. I've tried it. It's not fun. But more importantly, if you're going to have a third party do it, are they secure? Are you sure they're not gamifying your data? Like, do they own the data or do you? And the last is, I think we need to ask the question of how do you report that? What does healthy really mean? It is not our job as a standard to tell a project team what is healthy or not, but we do stand by our thresholds because we look at best practices. And so this is why I think a lot of this is not new to this audience. And every time I talk to Passive House, I get a little bit more excited about it because you guys, we don't have to start at zero to have a conversation about ventilation. By design, Passive House is already looking at the performance of the building. And a reset standard is going to come in and help you verify that with the data. We're not going to tell project teams how to design an envelope. We're not going to tell them all of that, but we're going to provide the means to actually establish where you place those monitors and how you track that monitoring, so you can decouple the building's performance from that of the occupied interior spaces. So it's a really interesting dovetail of the two project scopes coming together. Now, I think, like everyone, I'm exhausted talking about COVID. I don't want to make this about COVID, but I do want to give a nod to the fact that the whole reason why I am in air quality and monitoring is because I have lived half my life in polluted countries. And believe me, when wildfires struck in California and in Washington, on the one hand, I was devastated, but on the other hand, it was ironic because I was actually in Shanghai and we had blue skies and the air quality was stellar. And so it was for the first time, I sort of felt like, okay, I've been banging my head against the wall trying to get people to understand the importance of air quality, and they're finally getting it. And if it took wildfires and a pandemic to do it, I guess there is maybe a silver lining that we're going to finally have an educated conversation about it. And it's important because pollution has been around, and it's obviously showing that you're having increased susceptibility with this disease, because it's a known fact that if you're exposing yourself to pollutants and it's exacerbating your lung capacity, it's affecting all the organs of your body. So no big surprise there. And I don't want to hammer that too much further, but the reset parameters, the ones that everybody's talking about, humidity, temperature, all of those things are part of the reset standard and have been since its inception. We're looking at your measurements for particulate matter, TVOC, carbon dioxide, temperature, and humidity. So while there are some best practices that teams are looking at, right now, those are what we require, and here are the performance targets that you're responsible for. Depending on your typology, a commercial interior project has slightly different criteria than a core and shell. And we do have what is called acceptable and high performance. And I'm not going to go down the rabbit hole right now and talk about those, but if you have questions, obviously we can talk about it later, but all of this is downloadable from the Reset website. We'll explain our standards. I also have, hopefully, Beth in the chat box who can field some questions as we go along and maybe link up some information if need be. But again, I'll be sticking around afterwards to answer more questions more fully. So when we're talking about, and I love, Monty, that you had that image because it strikes a chord with me and it goes to the heart of me, because the one thing I want to stress to people is that if you've got a device on the wall that's giving you monitoring and reporting information, that is not necessarily telling you if your building is safe. And it's not so much is it the quality of that monitor, but that monitor might have an algorithm of its own. It might have data crunching of its own, and what it's displaying on the screen might not be necessarily data that you need for your building. Maybe that data is showing you 24/7 data and you're actually only interested in occupied hours of your building. So if you come into a building every day and you pass a monitor and it's like, oh my God, we're in the toxic limit, we're gonna fail our certification. It's not the case. If you see spikes on a display on a monitor, they tend to be anomalies. And this is why we're interested in long-term trends over time. We need historical data to make informed decisions. So Reset is asking you for hours of occupancy, monthly data cycles, parameter by parameter, daily average package over the totality of your project. So very big picture. Now, for those who want to geek out over our algorithm, I was prompted to put this in here. It basically shows you how we package that data that's coming from individual monitors for individual parameters. And again, if you wanted to go into this, you can look at that on the website. But the takeaway from this is that you really need to understand that an audit cycle is 1 month, and it's based on 30-minute packages of data that's coming from those monitors that have to be both meeting thresholds and data quality, as in quantity. In other words, you could show that you've got stellar air and your PM 2.5 is on point, but you've only got 1 hour of reporting. The rest of your day, you're missing all that data. Well, clearly we can't certify a project on that. So we have two requirements, both for quantity of data and for quality of data, for lack of a better word, quality being your thresholds. So I think that's important to stress, because a lot of people are wondering, well, how do you certify a project and then it's an ongoing performance issue? Well, we look at it month by month, and once you've attained 3 consecutive months, you're considered certified, but that certification can also be revoked. You need to maintain that So our projects are always ebbing and flowing for the duration and lifetime of the building. So monitor fit for purpose is an interesting conversation to just briefly elucidate on. There's monitor grades, in other words, the quality of the monitor, its accuracy, but there's also fit for purpose. And this is just a couple of examples. You've got your indoor, which most people are probably familiar with. You've got an induct, which is actually extracting from your HVAC ductwork. And then you've got your outdoor monitors. And you may or may not be familiar with those, but you can also see those on our website. And I want to quickly talk about a way to deploy for commercial interiors. There's 3 criteria that you really need to be looking for if you're going to deploy in an indoor space. You need to make sure that you're covering a percentage of occupants. In the case of full certification, 80% of your occupants have to have some kind of air quality coverage. The second is you need to have a cross-section of room types based on their function. And in reset, we do not, thirdly, permit a range of monitors to exceed 500 square meters. So this is sort of a visual of an AP putting that together. The colors representing the cross-section of room types. They were nice enough to put the occupant numbers where those are seated, and they actually called out their square meters, so I know that they're not exceeding the range. This is a really elegant floor plan to show how you're meeting those 3 criteria. Now, the last couple of slides, I'm going to spend a little time on this. It's a case study, but you have to understand when we get case studies, they are often 12 months after an event, because air quality is a contentious topic and a lot of building owners don't want to talk about it. And they're exceedingly private about it because of litigation issues, and also they don't want to look bad. So unlike certification that awards you for saving energy, you get applause for that. If you don't meet that, nothing really happens to you. Whereas if it comes to air quality and you say, hey, we've got this great PM 2.5 level now, we've corrected this issue of PM 2.5, and hey, look, our TVOCs are on point. We no longer have this issue of air quality. People are like, what? What was it before? It's kind of you're by promoting your good air quality, it's also on the flip side, in some cases, showing your warts that you had poor air quality. And unless you have the benefit of new construction, that's often the case. So a lot of our projects are very dicey about sharing their information with us. However, this case study, these are 2 completely different property owners. Case study 1, this is a core and shell building that actually was promoting itself as having the best air quality in this particular city. They promoted the hell out of it. They marketed that they were going to have this office tower that was going to be leaps and bounds of best air quality on the planet if you actually come and lease space in this building.
No, so I don't take it away anyway.
So they proceeded with core and shell and got their certification. They also, ironically, had 3 tenants in the building who successfully got their reset commercial interior certification. So a day comes where the building operators see an alert that's telling them that there's a problem of VOCs on the 11th floor. So they check out the 11th floor and they come to find that there are people in there during the day, unauthorized, that are painting. They're actually painting the sprinkler heads. And the VOCs from that are actually infiltrating subsequent floors both above and below. So they tell the workers, look, this is unauthorized work, you can't do this, you need to stop. They cease doing that, they tell them to leave, and they start a remediation, clearing the space, ventilation, what needs to be done. Now, at the same time, because there are tenants in the space who are reset commercial interior certified, they too had monitoring, they notice spikes, they're wondering what's happening, and on the way to go to complain to the building operations crew, they're actually intercepted by them. And the crew says, yep, we've been alerted of the problem. It was the 11th floor, the floor right above you, and we're taking care of the problem. So in just a matter of short order, they're able to identify the problem, communicate what they're doing to the tenant, allay the fears, and go back on track as these superheroes of a building who are bragging about this amazing air quality. So happy ending. Good story. The other building, unfortunately, totally separate owner in a different location, was in the midst of deploying monitors, but got behind schedule, and tenants moved in anyways. And at the same time, they're doing renovation and finishing the construction for the podium level. They were doing that work on a weekend, and come Monday, they open up the building. The tenants, the small amount of tenants, there's only about 300 people at the time, come into the building to several floors that are occupied, new construction, and they complain because they're having headaches, they're having eye-watering issues. The 300 some odd people walk out of the building and complain to ownership, and it creates havoc because the ownership doesn't know where it's coming from. The workers have long gone, and so it takes them hours to figure out where the pollutants are coming from. And in that space of time, the people who are already in a city that is culprit for this type of issue, it hits a raw nerve with them. And it takes them 5 days to get the occupants to come back into the building again. So it spoiled trust. And to this day, the tenants in this building still talk about this event. And this is almost 12 months ago. So a lot of trust lost, a lot of time lost, a reputation spoiled. But the happy sort of update to this is that in that case 2 project, they did indeed complete the installation of the monitors. They have 12 in-duct monitors and an outdoor monitor. And just in July, it passed its audit phase and was certified. So again, a really nice ending to a story, but they've still had to reinstitute this idea that they're a building owner that cares for its tenants. So it's part of a building complex. There's 6 towers, and now all of them are actually pursuing reset core and shell. And when it's completed, they'll have 47 in-duct monitors and 3 outdoor monitors for the project. So to kind of talk about, the data, what was alerting those operational and facilities folks? Like, what were they looking at? Well, it's based on these data platforms. Again, as a requirement of the standard, you need to have a third party. Sorry for the airplane. You have to have a third party who's able to take that data, crunch those metrics, and then they can be personalized with alerts. So if you want to have an alert every time your TVOCs are spiking beyond what is recommended thresholds, you can do so. There's platforms that are designed to do that. Another platform is Clear. Amazing that you can toggle all kinds of parts and features on it. You can download this information. You can display it in a number of ways. So again, understanding your data and having a third party and a platform by which you can extract that data, you don't necessarily have to use it for certification purposes, but you can use it for other things. And with that, I'll quickly end because I don't want to go over too much time and